just what is civic nationalism in America today? American civic nationalism is the only identitarian group that includes and embraces all races, ethnicities, and sexual orientations equally. We do not demonize nor fetishize, but merely criticize within the measure of conduct alone. We are the only identitarian group that demands equal opportunity and treatment under the law for all of its members as citizens. No quotas, no affirmative action, no diversity oversight, no progressive stack, no lowering of the standards, nor bending of the rules for anyone, for any reason. Because we know that dishonoring the rule of law will only weaken our moral fiber, and compromising our standards will compromise the effectiveness of our nation, the glory of our culture, and the quality of our citizenry. Because we alone know this lesson, we are the only identitarian group that is truly meritocratic. That is, we reserve our reverence to those remarkable individuals who gave so much to the betterment of our society. Every other identitarian group demands wholesale patronage and tribute for their particular demographic for simply being said demographic. We civic nationalists, by honoring and rewarding our most giving, civic-minded individuals, by valuing action above simply being born a certain way, we are the only identitarian group that encourages strength and stoicism over the wallowing in fabricated victimhood. We extol self-reliance and determination as the true markings of a free man, and we recognize state micromanagement and welfare dependency as the most effective ways in creating slaves of the 21st century. And our greatest heroes have all made personal sacrifices for a more prosperous future for our descendants as well as theirs, whereas all of these so-called activists on the other side, in spite of their hollow rhetoric about virtue, seem to not only act purely out of self-interest, but also out of some sadistic satisfaction when their political gains come at the painful expense of certain other citizens, those of whom they've branded as privileged. Oh yes, it is such a privilege to be your politically convenient scapegoat, thank you. But the gravest distinction that separates us from the rest is that we are the only identitarian group that has not been infiltrated nor compromised by one of the three major totalitarian factions determined to destroying the West and ultimately dominate the world: plutocratic globalism, Islamism, and communism, veiling behind all sorts of happy, shiny socialist euphemisms, each of whom have their own supremacist agenda and through natural law alone should be at each other's throats, but somehow have formed one of the most surreal, unholy alliances in human history, straying beyond the pale of realpolitik and into the bizarro clown world itself. But if you need concrete examples of this, just remember that the Open Borders Initiative is a globalist design to exploit imported third world labor while driving down the labor value of the native working classes well below a livable wage, and yet their most reliable shock troops are communists itching to, quote, smash capitalism. Another ludicrous example would be that although Muslims represent the greatest number of hate crimes against the LGBT throughout Europe, as well as state persecution of homosexuals within the respective homelands, those among us who are fighting for their importation by the millions into every westernized nation in the world are in fact the same queer activists who want you legally punished for not using their made-up pronouns nor baking their wedding cakes. Even those white ethno-nationalists who aren't on board with the equally tyrannical fascist ideology, with 100 years of competing with communism under their belt and the revelations of the New World Order as being the greatest of all Zionist conspiracies, even they are warming up to Islam with glowing admiration, just as Hitler did, by the way, as the only force compelling enough to eradicate the Weimar-style degeneracy and decadence rotting our society today. You know, it truly does frighten me how just about everybody but us, the American civic nationalist, is at the very least passive, if not complacent, with one of the mentioned clandestine movements subverting our republic towards a slow death by 1,000 legislative cuts, be it out of malice, be it out of gullibility, or just plain apathy, On a daily basis, you'll typically see more public outrage over referee calls and superhero movie casting announcements. Sure, nearly half this nation is getting whipped into a frothing frenzy over this phantom Nazi takeover, but ironically enough, fascism is the least of our current threats. Islam will return the world into a permanent, low-technological, low-informational, medieval period lasting thousands of years through a simple, 3-generational outbreeding program, taxpayer-funded. Communism will keep doing what they do best, murdering millions for wrongthing and then starving the rest, and our corporatocratic elites will subject us all to a cybernetic dystopian nightmare, devolving our humanity into worker drones and consumer cash cows, the likes of which Orwell nor Asimov couldn't even dream of. Seriously, are we the only ones left who value limited government anymore? Are we the only ones left to recognize the family unit as the fundamental building block for a strong, close-knit, and sovereign people? Are we the only ones left who have faith in humanity as being capable to form and uphold cultures organically without the distant social engineering by some ivory tower technocrat, some sanctimonious despot, or some faceless megalomaniac? Yes, we are the only identitarian group that allows anyone to be an equal member, and not just some doting second-class ally, so long as you hold faith in the principles that established our nation as one of the freest and with the highest standard of living ever in human history, and to swear allegiance to its upkeep and defense from all enemies, both foreign and domestic, the latter being especially you, Antifa. Other than that, personal pursuit of happiness and excellence is encouraged, but never at the expense of our nation nor its principles. Truly, a far more diverse range of personal options than the ones offered by those who scream for diversity the most. I guess those who scream the loudest say the least. And yet, in spite of all this, we American civic nationalists are vilified, slandered, even attacked by every other political faction. We have all been mischaracterized as Nazis and white supremacists by everyone other than the white ethno-nationalists themselves, who merely snicker at us, replying in mocking tones, "Hey, good luck with keeping the nation united," when you seem to be the last remaining few among us to even care. And you know what? You're probably not wrong. How very dismaying. In our age of Nazi hysteria, out of the hundreds, if not thousands, of those struck down and bludgeoned out of anger, after being labeled the modern-day boogeyman by swaths of politicians, journalists, and professors alike, all with their own hidden power-mad agendas, very few of the condemned actually were. Most of them were simply us, the American civic nationalist. Hell, they even tried branding a gay Jew celebrity with a black husband as a white supremacist. What more proof do you need that you're being manipulated by anti-American demagogues? And the greatest irony of it all, we American civic nationalists, who are suffering the brunt of this contemporary witch hunt, we are the only identitarian group who is diametrically opposed to Nazism in every principle and course of action. Every single one. Now, can our accusers truly boast the same? What do you think? What did their actions prove? And with every passing day, for the last decade, even long before Trump's presidential election, those who have been seeking to punch Nazis, consequently less real than imaginary, these so-called progressives, have only progressed in one way: in their resemblance of that which they purport to hate the most. God bless America, and may she persevere through these uncertain times.